The massive space station floated silently among the stars, its crystal walls gleaming with soft blue light. This was Zephyria, the center of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Inside its grand halls, 7 different alien species had gathered for their weekly council meeting. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the circular chamber. His body was made of living crystal that changed colors as he spoke. Around him sat the other council members, each representing a different world and species. The Aetherians floated in their special gas-filled bubbles, their translucent bodies rippling like water. The Mallory stretched their slug-like forms across heated stone platforms. The Zentari kept their plant-like bodies under bright artificial suns. The Quillari clicked their beaks while their feathered heads swayed gently. The Kethron delegates sat in pools of warm liquid that kept their fish-like skin moist. The Vorthok remained in their mechanical suits, their true forms hidden behind gleaming metal. Each species came from worlds that were gentle and kind. Their planets had perfect weather, abundant food, and no dangerous animals. They had evolved in safety and comfort, never knowing hunger, cold, or fear. This made them feel superior to all other life in the galaxy. "We have discovered a new world," Veltar announced, his crystal body turning a deep purple. "Our long-range scouts found it in the outer rim of the galaxy. The planet is small and blue, orbiting a yellow star." General Crix, the Aetherian military commander, drifted forward in his bubble. His voice came out as a musical whistle.
"Ow."
"What classification does it receive?" Veltar's body flashed red with what humans might recognize as disgust. Category 9, Deathworld. The worst possible rating. A shocked silence filled the chamber. The most experienced council members had rarely encountered such dangerous worlds. "Category 9? Squeaked Qualar, Representative Zeet, his feathers ruffling with anxiety. "Are you certain?" "Very certain," Veltar replied, his colors shifting to confirm his words. "The planet's surface is 71% covered in toxic liquid water. The atmosphere contains poisonous oxygen gas. The gravity is crushing, almost 10 times stronger than our homeworlds. Massive storms rage across the surface, with winds that could tear apart our strongest ships." The Mallory delegate Gloop slowly expanded his body in shock. "Liquid water is the primary surface feature. How is anything supposed to survive?" "Gets worse," Veltar continued. "The planet experiences violent temperature swings. In some areas, the toxic water actually freezes into solid ice. In others, it boils into deadly steam. The entire world is unstable, with the ground itself moving and shaking. Mountains explode with liquid rock. The very air catches fire during electrical storms." Commander Crix's bubble bobbed with what passed for laughter among his people. Nothing intelligent could evolve in such conditions. Any species that developed there would be weak and primitive, barely able to survive. "Our preliminary scans detected some signs of organized activity," Veltar admitted. "But given the hostile environment, we assume any inhabitants must be simple creatures. Probably barely passed using stone tools. They would have spent all their energy just trying to stay alive." The Zentari representative, a flowering tree-like being called Bloom, swayed her branches thoughtfully. "Perhaps we should investigate further. Even primitive species might have some use as labor." General Crix's bubble glowed with dismissive light. "Why waste resources on such a worthless world? Our military has better things to do than deal with. Backwards creatures from impossible planets? If they somehow develop space travel in a few thousand years, we can deal with them then. Right now, they pose no threat to anyone." The other council members nodded in agreement. Worlds like this blue planet were beneath their notice. They had important matters to discuss, like expanding their territory to more pleasant worlds. With useful resources, the planet will be designated as Earth and filed under insignificant death worlds, Veltar announced. "Threat level, 0. Recommended action, ignore completely." The council quickly moved on to other business. They discussed trade agreements with friendly civilizations, planned new colonies on beautiful garden worlds, and debated art exhibitions. The small blue planet called Earth was forgotten almost immediately. None of them realized that far away on that insignificant death world, something extraordinary was happening. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command center of the United Earth Defense Force, staring at the strange signals his team had intercepted. The radio telescope arrays had picked up something that definitely wasn't natural. Organized patterns of energy that could only mean one thing. "We're not alone," he said quietly to his team. Dr. Lisa Parker, the head of the linguistics department, leaned over her computer screen. "The signal isn't directed at us," she explained. "It's like we're listening to a phone conversation between two other people. But Jake, this is incredible. The mathematical patterns are so complex, so organized. This is definitely from an advanced civilization." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Can you decode any of it?" "I'm working on it," Lisa replied, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "But some of the references are starting to make sense. They mention coordinates that match our solar system. And Jake, ... double quotes." She paused, looking worried. "They have a name for Earth. What do they call it?" Lisa said quietly, "They classify our entire planet as a death world." In the weeks that followed, more signals were intercepted. The human scientists worked around the clock to understand the alien language. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. Earth was part of a vast galaxy filled with intelligent species. These aliens saw Earth as a hostile, a dangerous place where only primitive life could exist. The aliens had cataloged Earth's weather patterns, its violent storms, its crushing gravity, and its toxic atmosphere. They had noted the massive oceans, the unstable geology, and the dangerous wildlife. To them, Earth was a nightmare world where nothing civilized could survive. "They think we're weak," Jake said during one of the daily briefings. "They assume that because Earth is dangerous, anyone living here must be helpless and primitive." Lisa nodded grimly. "According to their communications, they've classified us as zero threat. They're not even planning to make contact. To them, we're not worth their time." The irony wasn't lost on the human scientists. What the aliens saw as weaknesses were actually humanity's greatest strengths. Every human alive had been forged by Earth's harsh conditions. They had learned to survive ice ages and heat waves, earthquakes and hurricanes, predators and diseases. Every challenge had made them stronger, more adaptable, more determined. The aliens from their gentle worlds had never faced real hardship. They had never known hunger or cold, never fought for survival, never had to adapt or die. They were soft, pampered and weak, but they didn't know it. As the months passed, more alien communications were decoded. The humans learned about the Galactic Council, about the 7 species that controlled vast territories among the stars. They learned about the aliens' advanced technology, their peaceful colonies, and their comfortable lives. They also learned about the growing threat from something called the Vrak Empire, an aggressive species that was expanding rapidly and causing trouble for the Council. Jake Morrison stood at the window of his office, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, advanced civilizations were going about their business, completely unaware that Earth's inhabitants were listening to every word they said. The aliens had made a critical error. They had assumed that because Earth was dangerous, its inhabitants must be weak. They had no idea that Earth's dangers had created the toughest, most adaptable species in the galaxy. Soon, the aliens would learn the truth about Deathworlders. But by then, it would be too late for them to correct their mistake. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council had dismissed Earth as unimportant. During that time, their comfortable world had been shaken by events they never expected. The Vrak Empire had struck without warning. These insectoid warriors came from a world slightly harsher than the Council's gentle planets. They had used that small advantage to devastating effect. 3 major Council colonies had fallen in a matter of weeks. General Crix floated nervously in his bubble as he delivered the bad news to the emergency council session. His usually bright blue form had turned a sickly gray color. "The Vrak forces overwhelmed our defenses at Colony 7, he reported, his musical voice cracking with strain. "Our soldiers couldn't handle the combat stress. Most of them collapsed. From fear before the battle even began, Ambassador Veltar's crystal body flickered with angry red light. How is this possible? We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Technology means nothing if our people can't use it, Crix replied sadly. The Vrak warriors are brutal and aggressive. They don't follow the rules of civilized warfare. They attack without warning, fight in harsh conditions, and never surrender. Our forces are trained for peaceful negotiations and gentle conflicts. We're not prepared for real war. The other council members shifted uncomfortably. The Mallory delegate, Gloop, expanded his body in distress. What about our other colonies? Are they safe? The Vrak are advancing toward the core world's Crix admitted, at this rate, they'll reach our home systems within a year. We need help, but all our allied species are just as unprepared for this kind of warfare as we are. The chamber fell silent. These beings had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Through diplomacy and superior technology, they had never faced an enemy that simply didn't care about their advantages. Bloom. The Zentari representative swayed her branches thoughtfully. What about recruiting from the primitive worlds? Species that have faced hardship might be more suited to combat. Veltares' color shifted to show he was considering the idea. We did classify several worlds as having warrior potential, but most of them are still in early stages of development. What about those Deathworlders we found? We suggested Zet, the Quillari delegate. The ones from that toxic planet called Earth. If they've survived in such horrible conditions, they might be useful in a fight. General Crix's bubble brightened slightly. It's worth trying. Even if they're primitive, they might have survival instincts we could use. And since they're from such a terrible world, they should be grateful for any help we offer. The Council agreed to send a small diplomatic vessel to Earth. They expected to find a handful of primitive survivors who would be amazed by their technology and eager to help in exchange for food and shelter. The ship that headed toward Earth was called the Harmony. It was designed for peaceful contact with new species, equipped with advanced translation systems and gifts to impress primitive civilizations. Captain Rylith, a gentle Mallory, commanded the vessel with a crew of young diplomats who had never seen real conflict. As the Harmony approached Earth's solar system, Captain Rylith activated the Universal Greeting Protocol. The ship's computer was supposed to broadcast a message of peace and friendship in whatever language the local species used. But something went wrong with the translation systems. The computer had been programmed with languages from gentle worlds, where beings spoke softly and politely, had no reference for the harsh, direct way that humans communicated. Instead of greetings, we come in peace. The message that reached Earth translated as surrender immediately, or you will be harvested. For resources. On Earth, Admiral Ben Carter was in the middle of his morning briefing when the alien message arrived. The United Earth Defense Force had been tracking the approaching ship for days, and every military installation on the planet was ready. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, the young fighter pilot who had been monitoring communications, "the alien ship just sent us what appears to be a surrender demand. They want us to give up or face destruction." Admiral Carter's jaw tightened. After months of intercepting alien communications, he knew these beings considered humans to be weak and primitive. Now they were coming to Earth with threats. "All units, this is Admiral Carter," he announced over the global communication system. "The aliens have arrived and they're demanding our surrender. I don't know about you, but I didn't survive 20 years of Earth's weather, wars, and disasters just to give up to some space visitors. All forces, prepare for defensive action." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Fighter jets launched from bases around the world. Naval vessels, led by submarine commander Captain Roy Phillips, moved into position. Ground-based missile systems activated their targeting systems. Orbital defense platforms recently built using reverse-engineered alien technology powered up their weapons. Captain Rylith was completely unprepared for what happened next. His ship's sensors detected hundreds of military vehicles converging. On his position, energy signatures indicated weapons more primitive than his own, but the sheer number was staggering. "This can't be right," he said to his crew, his slug-like body trembling with confusion. The scans showed this was a Category 9 Deathworld. There shouldn't be any organized military forces. The first wave of human fighters, led by Lieutenant Rodriguez, screamed past the alien ship at speeds that would have been impossible for most species to survive. The G-forces alone should have killed any pilot, but the humans flew as if it was. Routine. Alien vessel, you are surrounded, came the radio transmission in perfect galactic standard. Surrender immediately or face the consequences. Captain Rylith was shocked. Not only did these primitives have organized military forces, but they had learned the galactic language. How was this possible? We came in peace, he broadcast desperately. There was a translation error. We mean no harm. But it was too late. The humans had heard the original message, and they weren't taking any chances. Admiral Carter had learned from the intercepted communications that these aliens considered humans to be worthless. This was clearly a test of human resolve. The battle lasted only minutes. The Harmony was designed for comfort and diplomacy, not warfare. Its shields were meant to protect against space debris, not military weapons. The human fighters, armed with crude but effective missiles, punched through the alien defenses like they were made of paper. Captain Roy Phillips, commanding a nuclear submarine, surfaced just long enough to launch a precise strike that disabled the alien ship's engines. The vessel crashed into the Pacific Ocean, its crew surviving only because the humans had aimed to disable, not destroy. As rescue boats pulled the alien survivors from the water, Captain Rylith couldn't stop shaking. These primitive beings had moved with coordination and skill that impressed even him. Their weapons were simpler than galactic standard, but they were rugged and reliable. Most importantly, the humans had shown no fear at all during the battle. How? He asked Admiral Carter when they met face to face. How did you develop such advanced military capabilities on a death world? Admiral Carter looked at the slug-like alien with something approaching pity. You think Earth is a death world because it's dangerous, but danger is what made us strong. Every human alive has survived storms that would destroy your cities, diseases that would wipe out your populations, and predators that would terrorize your people. We don't just survive on Earth, we thrive here. But your technology, Captain, Rylith protested. It's so primitive compared to ours. Maybe, Carter replied. But our primitive technology works in conditions that would shut down your advanced systems. We build things to last, to work when everything goes wrong. That's what happens when you grow up on a world that's constantly trying to kill you. The news of the failed First Contact mission spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The Galactic Council, facing ridicule from other civilizations, realized they had made a terrible mistake. The primitive Deathworlders had not only survived their harsh world, but had used it to become something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that was actually improved by adversity. Meanwhile, the Vrak Empire received reports of the incident and began to worry. If the Council's Deathworlders were this effective in battle, perhaps their easy conquest would not be so easy after all, on Earth. Teams of scientists led by Dr. Carl Wright and Dr. Nina Brooks began studying the captured alien technology. They discovered that while more advanced, it was also more fragile and specialized. Human technology, built to work in Earth's harsh conditions, was proving to be surprisingly adaptable. The age of human expansion into the galaxy was about to begin, and the aliens were starting to realize that they had awakened something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The story of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within days, every major civilization had heard about the primitive Deathworlders, who had defeated a Galactic Council ship using crude weapons and raw determination. Reaction was not what the Council had hoped for. Instead of sympathy, they received mockery and doubt. How could the most advanced civilization in the galaxy be defeated by beings from a toxic wasteland? Other species began to question whether the Council was really as powerful as they claimed. Vrak Empire was particularly pleased with this news. Their insectoid scouts had been watching the Council's weakness with growing confidence. If the Council couldn't handle a few primitives from a death world, they certainly couldn't stop the Vok expansion. Emperor Skrax, the massive leader of the Vok, clicked his mandibles with satisfaction as he reviewed the intelligence reports. The Council grows weaker by the day, he told his generals. Their defeat by these humans proves they are no threat to our expansion. begin the second phase of our campaign. But the Vrak weren't the only ones paying attention to the events at Earth. Deep in the galaxy's research centers, xenobiologists and military strategists were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions. What if the Council had been wrong about Deathworlders? What if harsh conditions created strength instead of weakness? On Earth, the captured alien technology was being studied by the brightest minds humanity had to offer. Dr. Carl Wright led the engineering team that was taking apart the alien ship piece by piece. His colleague, Dr. Nina Brooks, worked on understanding the advanced physics behind their faster-than-light travel. "This is incredible," Carl said as he examined a piece of alien hull material. "Their technology is definitely more advanced than ours, but it's also more fragile. This hull plating would be useless in a storm or extreme temperature changes. It's designed for perfect conditions." Nina nodded from her workstation. Same thing with their power systems. They're incredibly efficient, but they need constant maintenance and perfect environmental conditions. One power surge or temperature spike and the whole system shuts down. Admiral Carter, now promoted to head the newly formed Terran Space Command, listened to their reports with growing understanding. So their technology is better, but only in ideal conditions. "Exactly," Carl replied, like comparing a race car to a military jeep. The race car is faster and more efficient, but the jeep can drive through mud, over rocks, and in any weather. Our technology is built like jeeps because Earth forced us to build things that way. Within 6 months, Earth's first interstellar ship was ready. The Endeavor was a strange hybrid of human engineering and alien technology. It looked rough and blocky compared to the smooth, elegant alien vessels. But it was built to survive anything the galaxy could throw at it. Captain Rick Sullivan commanded the ship, chosen for his experience in Earth's most dangerous environments. He had served in the Arctic, survived desert warfare, and commanded ships through hurricanes. If anyone could handle the unknown dangers of space, it was him. The crew reflected Earth's diversity and toughness. Sergeant Pete Baker led the Marine security team, all veterans of Earth's harshest combat zones. Dr. Helen Foster headed the science team, specialists who had worked in everything from volcanic research to deep-sea exploration. Navigator Lisa Murphy had guided ships through Earth's worst storms and most dangerous waters as the Endeavor prepared to leave Earth's solar system. Captain Sullivan addressed his crew. "We're about to meet beings who think we're primitive and weak. They've dismissed us as unimportant because we come from a dangerous world. Let's show them what growing up on a death world really means." The journey to the Galactic Council station took 3 weeks. During that time, the human crew adapted to space travel with the same determination they had shown on Earth. When alien technology failed in the harsh conditions of deep space, they fixed it with human ingenuity and spare parts. When the ship's systems overloaded from cosmic radiation, they improvised solutions that kept everything running. The Council Station of Zephyria was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure that housed millions of beings from dozens of species. As the Endeavor approached, every sensor in the station focused on the strange, blocky ship. "That's their vessel?" asked General Crix, his bubble flickering with disbelief. "It looks like it was built from scrap metal," Ambassador Veltar S. Crystal. Body showed similar confusion. "The design is completely inefficient. No smooth lines, no elegant curves. It's like they welded together random pieces of metal." But the station's engineers were seeing something different. The human ship was crude, but it was also incredibly robust. Every system had backup systems, and those had backup systems too. The hull was thick enough to stop meteor impacts, and the power systems were built to handle massive overloads. When the Endeavor docked at the station, the first thing that shocked the aliens was how the humans moved. Captain Sullivan and his team walked through the station corridors like they owned the place, completely unaffected by the artificial gravity, the recycled air, or the constant hum of machinery that made other species nervous. The formal meeting took place in the Council's main chamber. As Sullivan and his diplomatic team entered, every alien in the room stared in amazement. The humans were tall, strong, and moved with a confidence that came from surviving a lifetime of challenges. "Welcome to Zephyria," Ambassador Veltar said, his crystal body shifting to diplomatic blue. We are honored to meet representatives of your species. Sullivan looked around the chamber, taking in the different alien forms, with the same calm attention he would give to studying a new battlefield. Thank you for the welcome. We need to talk about the translation error that led to our first meeting.
Yes.
That was most unfortunate, Veltar replied. We hope you understand it was not intentional. Lisa Murphy, the human negotiator, stepped forward. We've been monitoring your communications for months. We know you classified Earth as an insignificant death world and us as zero threat. We also know about your war with the Vrak Empire. Shocked silence filled the chamber. These primitives had been listening to their private communications and understanding their language. How is this possible? Demanded General Crix. Our communications are encrypted with the most advanced systems in the galaxy. Dr. Foster smiled politely. When you grow up on a world where everything is trying to kill you, you learn to pay attention to your environment. We've been studying your signals, your technology, and your weaknesses for months. The word weaknesses sent a chill through the chamber. These beings from a toxic world were analyzing the galaxy's most advanced civilization and finding flaws. Captain Sullivan took control of the conversation. You're losing your war with the Vrak because you're not prepared for real conflict.
Your people have never faced hardship, never learned to fight for survival.
Every human on my ship has survived disasters that would destroy your entire civilization. That's impossible, General Crix protested. We have the most advanced military in the galaxy. You have the most advanced technology, Sullivan corrected. But your soldiers have never faced real danger. They panic when things go wrong because they've never learned to adapt. On Earth, we call that brittle. You look strong, but you break under pressure. Sergeant Baker stepped forward, his scarred face showing the results of a lifetime of combat. I've fought in deserts where the heat could kill you in minutes. Jungles where every plant and animal was poisonous, and cities where the buildings collapsed around us. Your worst day in space is probably easier than a normal Tuesday on Earth. Aliens began to understand something that terrified them. These humans weren't just survivors, they were predators. Earth hadn't made them weak. It had made them into something the galaxy had never seen before. What do you want from us? Ambassador Veltar asked quietly. Recognition, Sullivan replied. We want to be treated as equals, not as primitives. We want representation in your government and access to your technology. In return, we'll help you win your war. And if we refuse, asked General Crix. Sullivan's smile was cold and dangerous. Then you'll lose to the Vrak, and we'll deal with whoever's left. But I think you're smart enough to realize that having us as allies is much better than having us as enemies. The council members looked at each other with growing fear. These Deathworlders had turned their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. They had learned to not just survive in impossible conditions, but to thrive in them. The age of the Galactic Council's dominance was ending. The age of the Deathworlders had begun. The Vrak Empire had been watching the events at the Galactic Council station with growing concern. What they had first seen as proof of the Council's weakness was now looking like something much more dangerous. These Deathworlders from Earth were not the primitive creatures they had expected. Emperor Scrax called an emergency meeting of his war council. The massive insectoid leader clicked his mandibles nervously as he reviewed the intelligence reports from his spies. The humans have technology that works in conditions that would disable our equipment, reported General Vec, his chitin armor scarred from many battles. Their ship survived a journey through the Void Storm sector, something that would destroy our vessels. They are still few in number, Scrax replied, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. We cannot let fear of these Deathworlders stop our expansion, begin the final assault on the Council's core worlds. We will crush them before these humans can make a difference. The Vrak had been preparing for this moment for years. Their massive fleet, numbering in the thousands, began moving toward the heart of Council space. They planned to strike at 5 major worlds simultaneously, overwhelming the defenders before reinforcements could arrive. But the Council was no longer facing this threat alone. The agreement with Earth had been signed quickly once the aliens realized what they were dealing with. President Kate Henderson had agreed to provide military assistance in exchange for full membership in the galactic community and recognition of human territorial claims, the Terran space. Command had been working around the clock to prepare for this moment. Admiral Jack Morrison, Captain Sullivan's older brother, commanded the first human battle fleet. It was small compared to the Vrak Armada, only 50 ships, but each vessel was built to human standards and crewed by people who learned to fight in Earth's harshest conditions. Marine Colonel Sam Torres led the ground forces, veterans of conflicts in Earth's most dangerous environments. Pilot Commander Lucy Kim commanded the fighter squadrons. Men and women who had learned to fly in Earth's violent storms and unpredictable weather. The first major battle took place at Kepler Station, a crucial supply hub that controlled the shipping lanes to 3 Council worlds. The Vrak fleet arrived, expecting another easy victory against the soft Council forces. Instead, they found something they had never encountered before. The human ships looked crude and blocky compared to the elegant Vrak vessels. But they moved. With a precision that spoke of crews who knew their equipment inside and out, when the Vrak opened fire with their energy weapons, the human ships didn't try to dodge, they simply absorbed the damage and kept fighting. Their shields are down, but they're still fighting, reported Vrak Captain Zeth from his command ship. How is this possible? The answer became clear as the battle continued. The human ships were built in layers with armor, backup armor, and emergency systems all designed to keep fighting even when heavily damaged. What the Vrak saw as crude construction was actually brilliant engineering ships, built to survive anything. Commander Kim led her fighter squadron through the Vrak, formation like she was flying through a thunderstorm back on Earth. The enemy. Fighters were faster and more maneuverable, but they couldn't match the human pilot's ability to function under extreme stress. Target their engines, Kim ordered over the radio. These bugs fold under pressure. Hit them hard and they'll panic. She was right. The Vrak had evolved on a world slightly harsher than the Council planets, but they were still creatures of comfort compared to humans. When they're perfectly planned, attack began to fall apart. They didn't adapt, they froze. The turning point came when Colonel Torres led a boarding action against the main Vrak command ship. The human Marines moved through the alien vessel like they were exploring a dangerous cave back on Earth. Checking every corner and adapting to the strange environment, the Vrak crew had never faced enemies like this. The humans fought in conditions that would have incapacitated most species in damaged sections with no life support. In areas flooded with toxic gases and corridors filled with smoke and debris, they just kept coming, no matter what the Vrak threw at them. They don't stop, Captain Zeth reported in his final transmission. We damaged their armor, poisoned their air, cut their communications, but they keep fighting. It's like they're made of metal instead of flesh. The battle for Kepler Station lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Vrak fleet was scattered and broken. More importantly, word of the human victory spread through both the Council and Vrak territories. The Deathworlders had proven they could fight and win against the galaxy's most feared warriors. But the war was far from over. Emperor Skrax, enraged by the defeat, ordered his remaining fleets to converge on the Council's homeworlds. Couldn't win through quick strikes? He would crush his enemies with overwhelming numbers. The final phase of the war began 3 months later. The Vrak assembled the largest fleet in galactic history, over 3,000 ships carrying millions of warriors. They moved toward the Council's core systems like a dark tide, ready to finish what they had started. The Council's response was equally massive. Every ship they could find was pressed into service, including hundreds of human vessels that had been completed using the new hybrid technology. The combined fleet was smaller than the Vrak Armada, but it had something the enemy lacked: units that could function when everything went wrong. Admiral Morrison commanded the human contingent from his flagship, the Defiant. The ship was typical of human design, ugly, blocky, and built to survive anything. Its crew of 800 included people from every continent on Earth, all united by the experience of growing up on a world that had tried to kill them every day of their lives. The Vrak are coming in fast, reported Navigation Officer Tom Baker. They're not even trying to be subtle about it. Morrison nodded grimly. They've never had to fight a real war before. They think bigger numbers automatically mean victory. Let's show them what humans learned in 2 world wars. The battle began in the outer system of Centauri Prime, the Council's garden world. The Vrak fleet moved in perfect formation, their ships gleaming in the system's golden sunlight. They had planned this attack for months, calculating every detail, but plans rarely survive contact with the enemy, especially when the enemy refuses. To follow the rules, the human ships didn't engage in the expected long-range duel. Instead, they charged straight into the Vrak formation, using their superior armor and redundant systems to get close enough for devastating short-range attacks. It was a tactic that required incredible courage and skill, exactly the kind of thing that came naturally to people raised on Earth. "They're insane," transmitted Vrak General Vek as human fighters dove through his formation, targeting the weak points in his ship's armor. No sane species would attack like this. But the humans weren't insane, they were desperate. They knew that if they lost this battle, Earth would be next on the Vrak target list. But for their home world and their families, the battle raged for days. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Fighters darted between the larger vessels like angry insects. And Marines fought hand-to-hand combat in the corridors of damaged ships. The space around Zentari Prime became a graveyard of twisted metal and floating debris. Slowly, the tide began to turn. The Vrak had expected their superior numbers to guarantee victory, but they had never faced an enemy that simply refused to give up. When their ships were damaged, they retreated for repairs. When human ships were damaged, they kept fighting, until they were destroyed. The decisive moment came when Colonel Torres led a massive boarding action against the Vrak flagship. Emperor Skrax himself waited in the command center. Surrounded by his elite guards and confident in his victory, Torres and his Marines fought. Through the ship like they were storming a fortress back on Earth, they moved through areas filled with toxic gas, climbed through damaged sections where the artificial gravity had failed, and fought in corridors lit only by emergency lighting. When they finally reached the command center, Skrax was waiting with his ceremonial war staff, ready to fight to the death. But the sight of the human Marines, battered and bloodied but still advancing, broke his spirit. "What are you?" he asked, in his native language as Torres approached. "We're from Earth," Torres replied simply, "and we don't quit." The surrender of the Vrak flagship sent shockwaves through the enemy fleet. Their emperor was captured, their command structure was broken, and their perfect battle plan had fallen apart. Within hours, Vrak ships throughout the system were broadcasting surrender signals. The war was over. The Galactic Council had won, but everyone knew that the real victory belonged to the humans. The Deathworlders had taken the galaxy's most feared warriors and crushed them. Through sheer determination and refusal to give up, as news of the victory spread, species throughout the galaxy began to reassess their understanding of what it meant to be strong. The gentle creatures from comfortable worlds were not the pinnacle of evolution, they were the exception. Real strength came from surviving real challenges, and no one had survived more challenges than the humans from Earth. The war with the Vrak Empire had ended, but its effects would change the galaxy forever. In the months following the final battle, delegations from hundreds of worlds arrived at the Galactic Council station to witness the new order that was emerging. General Kyle Barnes stood on the observation deck of the massive human-built space station that now orbited Zentari Prime. The structure looked nothing like the elegant council stations. It was built like everything humans made, functional and nearly indestructible. Through the thick windows, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going, all seeking to understand how the galaxy's balance of power had shifted so dramatically. Hard to believe it's only been a year since we were considered primitives, said Dr. Helen Foster, joining him at the window. She now served as the human ambassador to the reformed Galactic Council. Barnes nodded thoughtfully. The aliens are still trying to figure out what happened. They can't understand how beings from a death world could be stronger than species with thousands of years of advanced civilization. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. After the defeat of the Vrock Empire, every major power in the galaxy had wanted to form alliances with Earth, species that had previously ignored. Human communications were now sending desperate requests for military cooperation and technology sharing, but the changes went far deeper than simple politics. The very way the galaxy thought about evolution and strength had been turned upside down. For centuries, the prevailing wisdom had been that advanced civilizations came from gentle worlds, where species could develop culture and technology without the distraction of survival challenges. Humans had proven that theory completely wrong. Captain Rick Sullivan, now promoted to Admiral and Commander of the Joint Human-Alien Fleet, was leading the most ambitious exploration mission in galactic history. His new ship, the Pioneer, was designed using the best of human and alien technology. It was built to explore regions of space that had previously been considered too dangerous for civilized species. "We're approaching the Maelstrom sector," reported Navigation Officer Lisa Murphy. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy storms and gravitational anomalies. No ship has ever successfully explored this region," Sullivan smiled confidently. "No alien ship has explored it. But we're not just aliens anymore, are we? We're Deathworlders." Set course for the center of the storm. The Pioneer pushed into the chaotic region of space that had claimed dozens of previous expeditions. Energy storms that would have fried the delicate systems of traditional alien ships, barely registered on the human-built equipment. Gravitational waves that would have torn apart elegant council vessels were absorbed by the ship's redundant structural supports. As they traveled deeper into the maelstrom, they discovered something. Extraordinary planets. Dozens of worlds that had been hidden by the storms, worlds that no one had known existed. And on several of these planets, the sensors detected signs of intelligent life. Admiral called Dr. Carl Wright from the science station. "These readings are incredible. The life signs are coming from worlds that make Earth look like a tropical paradise. We're talking about planets with surface temperatures that would melt lead, gravity that would crush most species, and atmospheric pressure that would implode traditional spacecraft." "Deathworlders," Sullivan said quietly. "We're not the only ones." The discovery sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Earth was not unique. There were other species that had evolved on impossibly harsh worlds. Species that had been hidden from galactic civilization because their home systems were too dangerous to explore. The first contact with these new Deathworlder species was handled very differently than the Council's disastrous first meeting with humans. Admiral Sullivan personally led the diplomatic missions. The message was simple: "We're from Earth. We understand what it's like to grow up on a world that's trying to kill you." The response was immediate and positive. The Corvin from their lava-covered world, the Themarians from their high-gravity ice planet, and the Zalani from their toxic gas giant moons all recognized humans as kindred spirits. These were species that had spent millions of years learning the same lessons that Earth had taught humanity, that survival required strength, adaptability, and an absolute refusal to give up. Within 6 months, the Deathworlder Alliance was formed. It was unlike any organization the galaxy had ever seen. A coalition of species that valued practical solutions over elegant theories, functionality over beauty, and results over protocols. Back on Earth, President Kate Henderson was dealing with the challenges of humanity's new role in galactic affairs. The planet that had once been dismissed as insignificant was now receiving diplomatic visitors from across the galaxy, all wanting to understand the secret of human strength. "They keep asking us to explain how we became so tough," she told Admiral Morrison during one of their regular briefings. "They want to know if there's some kind of training program they can use to make their people stronger." Morrison laughed. "What do we tell them? That they need to spend a few million years on a planet where everything is poisonous, the weather tries to kill you, and the animals see you as food. It's not something you can learn in a classroom." but some species were trying anyway. The more forward-thinking alien civilizations had begun establishing training colonies on harsh worlds, hoping to toughen up their populations. It was a process that would take generations, but they were determined to learn from the Deathworlder example. Meanwhile, the former Vrak Empire was undergoing its own transformation. Emperor Skrax, now a prisoner on Earth, had become an unexpected advocate for human methods. His own species had been warriors, but they had never faced anything like human determination. "We thought we were strong because we could conquer weaker species," he told his Vrak followers in a recorded message. "But the humans showed us what real strength looks like. They don't fight to conquer, they fight to protect what they love. That's why they're unbeatable." The rehabilitation of the Vrak worlds was being overseen by Colonel Sam Torres, now promoted to general. His approach was typically human, practical, direct, and focused on results rather than punishment. The Vrak were warriors, but they were also bullies, he explained to the Joint Command staff. Bullies fold when they meet someone who won't back down. Now that they've learned there are limits to their power, they're actually becoming useful. Allies? Dr. Lisa Parker, now head of the Galactic Communication Bureau, was working on the most ambitious project in galactic history, creating a comprehensive database of Deathworlder knowledge. Every species that had survived on a harsh world had developed unique solutions to impossible problems. And she was determined to preserve and share that knowledge. "The galaxy has been thinking about evolution all wrong," she explained to her team of researchers. "We assumed that the perfect environment would produce the perfect species. But perfect environments don't create strength, they create weakness. Challenge creates strength." The most visible symbol of the new galactic order was the Great Station. It's a massive structure built in the space between the Council worlds and the Deathworlder territories. It was designed to human engineering standards, but incorporated the best technology from dozens of species. The station could survive supernovas, black holes, and any other cosmic disaster the galaxy could produce. Admiral Sullivan stood in the station's command center, looking out at the busiest spaceport in the galaxy. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went daily, carrying passengers and cargo between civilizations that had never imagined they could coexist. "You know what the best part is?" asked Commander Lucy Kim, now his second in command. 6 months ago, half these species had never heard of humans. Now they're asking us to help them explore regions of space they never dared to enter. Sullivan nodded thoughtfully. "We're not conquerors, Lucy. We're explorers," Earth taught us. That there's always something new beyond the next horizon. Always another challenge to overcome. Now we get to share that with the whole galaxy. The transformation was still ongoing. Every day brought new discoveries as human-led expeditions pushed into previously unexplored regions of space. Every week brought news of new Deathworlder species being contacted and invited to join the Alliance. Every month brought improvements in technology as human. Engineering principles were applied to alien science, but perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about itself. The old ideas about strength and weakness, about what made a civilization advanced, had been replaced by a new understanding. True strength came not from comfort and safety, but from challenge and adversity. Ambassador Veltar, the Nexari, who had once dismissed Earth as insignificant, now served as the Council's liaison to the Deathworlder Alliance. His crystal body had learned to shift to new colors that reflected his changed understanding of the universe. "We spent thousands of years believing that the gentle worlds produced the best civilizations," he admitted during a joint council session. "We were wrong. The harsh worlds produce the strongest civilizations, not because they're cruel, but because they teach lessons that comfort never can."